song You Are My Sunshine, right? Well, today we're going to talk about the guy that comes up when you Google who wrote it, James Jimmie Houston Davis. Jimmie Davis is a Louisiana state treasure. I mean, he has his own museum. Having been born there in the late 1890s and rising to prominence as a country western singer with many hits. Eventually, he attended LSU, where he wrote his graduate thesis on what he viewed as a scientific justification for racially based eugenics, which, I mean, if you haven't heard of it, that's great. But it's the archaic notion that people should be either arranged into ideal breeding pairs to emphasize so called desirable traits, uh, or sterilized if they exhibited so called undesirable traits. In the case of the American eugenics movement, undesirable traits could include so called physical deformities like having a smaller than average head or being shorter than average, having a so called low IQ, which is itself an obsolete and ridiculous measure of intelligence. Or, well, in the case of Jimmie Davis, being, again, these are his words and not mine, uh, basically any race that was not his own. He rose to national prominence when he recorded and released You Are My Sunshine in 1940, which more or less paved the way for all the other success he had in his life. He ran for and won the office of Governor of Louisiana in 1944 for the first time, basically on the platform of, hey, I wrote that song you like. He would sing the song at campaign stops and literally ride a horse named Sunshine. During his first term, he spent a ridiculous amount of time out of office, making frequent journeys to Los Angeles to make cameos in motion pictures, and even finding the time to record top five country hits, including a number one. You know, instead of, well, doing his job. Uh, he was at the time constitutionally bound to serve one term at a time, so he spent the next while recording more music and appearing in the occasional Western. In 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Brown v. Board of Education that segregation in public schools, is unconstitutional. This did not sit well with former Governor Davis, nor apparently the majority of Louisiana Democrats at the time, as in 1959 he ran on a platform of maintaining segregation. He finished second in the state's primary and ultimately won the subsequent runoff. At the time, Louisiana was essentially a one party state, and he faced little opposition on his return path to the governor's mansion in 1960. Oh, and I have a picture here of him with President Kennedy. After he left office the second time, Davis thankfully never returned to politics. The rest of the stuff that came to him in his life, the halls of fame he was inducted to, being president of the Gospel Music Association, being number 73 on CMA's Top 100 Songs, seemed to fall into his lap after this, as You Are My Sunshine would go on to become, one of the most covered and famous songs in the history of all music. Its simple lyrics, mourning the loss of a love, and its even simpler, unforgettable, gradually rising and falling melody appealed to people of all generations, uh, genders, and races, being covered by everyone from Gene Autry to Burl Ives to Ray Charles to Carly Simon to Johnny Cash to your parents. Uh, and if you Google who wrote You Are My Sunshine right now, it'll probably still say Jimmie Davis and Charles Mitchell. But Jimmie Davis and Charles Mitchell definitely, even by Davis's own admission, did not write You Are My Sunshine. Davis stated in later interviews that he had been interested in the song for a long time and tried to convince many record companies to record it before buying the rights and eventually making his own recording of the song on February 5th, 1940. However, this is not the first recording of the song. It's not even the second. It's not even the third. In January of 1940, the song was recorded by Bob Atcher and Bonnie Blue Eyes. However, this version of the song does credit Davis and Mitchell as composers, despite strangely being recorded before Davis would file the copyright on January 30th of that year. But regardless, a few months before this, in September 1939, the song was recorded by the Rice Brothers Gang, citing one Paul Rice as composer. Jimmie Davis and Paul Rice signed a contract for $35 in 1939, which is a little over $640 today, giving the rights to the song to Davis, who then went on to put his own name on it and collect a lifetime of fortune and accolades. A biography of him states that he never claimed authorship, but he ran on a horse named Sunshine. He certainly didn't raise a stink about it as the world of popular music threw him a half-century long ticker tape parade. But did Rice have the rights to the song to begin with? The story goes that Rice was broke, his wife was in the hospital, and he needed the money. Davis was familiar with the song and likely tracked him down as he was its earliest cited author. But the Rice brothers did not make the earliest known recording of the song. That honor goes to the Pine Ridge Boys, two fellows named Doug Spivey and Marvin Taylor, who recorded it in August of 1939. Their story contends that Spivey wrote the song in 1937 after he had received a letter from a fan in South Carolina. And Paul Rice, wouldn't you know, told the exact same story 2 decades later in an interview with the Shreveport Times. Also, the aforementioned Bob Atcher contends that a manager of his, Art Satherley, had garnered the song from a singer named Taylor from the Pine Ridge Boys. So there we have three pieces of evidence that the song originates with the Pine Ridge Boys. One, theirs is the earliest recording of the song. Two, there's Spivey's claim that was echoed by Rice decades later in an interview. And Bob Atcher's testimony that while it attributes authorship to Taylor, at least points in the same direction. We can at least safely conclude the song was not written by Jimmie Davis and Charles Mitchell, and records such as Google should be changed to reflect this. But the story of You Are My Sunshine does not end in 1939, nor in 1937 as it has been claimed to be written, nor in Louisiana, nor South Carolina. It should be noted that on the Pine Ridge Boys' earliest recording, there is no composer listed. This could indicate that by 1939, the song was already a staple of Southern country music, its writer lost to history like so many traditional folk songs. Many historians have set out to find the origin of the song, including Professor Wayne Daniel of Georgia State University, who stated in his 1990 book, Pickin' on Peachtree, A History of Country Music in Atlanta, Georgia, like many of the words ascribed to Shakespeare, the authorship of You Are My Sunshine will never be decided to everyone's satisfaction. However, a 1990 article in Chronicles magazine cites the elderly population of Georgia, many of whom remember two performances in particular that predate all these claims. One by famous blind banjo virtuoso and world's first recorded yodeler, Riley Puckett, and one very memorable performance at a 1933 VFW convention by one Oliver Hood. Multiple independent sources mention this performance where Hood leaned out a window and sang many verses of the song through a megaphone. It should be noted that this article was written by Hood's own grandson, one Theodore Pappas. So yeah, grain of salt there, but Hood's behavior is worth noting and possibly itself evidentiary. Hood is described by his surviving family as generous to a fault, a kind and giving man who was extremely well liked in his small hometown. He was a mill worker, a music teacher, and morning host of Country and Western Music Show on WLAG in LaGrange, Georgia. It is well remembered by people of the community that every Sunday at the Hood home was a festive gathering, and oftentimes Hood would play songs and even give lessons. Quoting Hood's own grandson now, to Hood, quote, music was a not-for-profit venture, an act of love, something that transcended commercial consideration. And you know who was known to show up at these gatherings and sing with him? People such as Riley Puckett and Paul Rice. It is certainly possible that if the song had already existed, that Hood would have shared it with lots of people, and given his generous nature, would likely have been only too pleased to hear it growing in popularity. Hood never copyrighted a single song of his, despite reportedly writing hundreds. That is until, wouldn't you know it, 1940, the very same year a song that he wrote would go on to award someone else with national fame and the riches and awards that go with it. Suddenly, Hood felt the need to copyright his work, including a 1957 song titled Somebody Stole My Sunshine Away. By the way, the year of the article when Paul Rice claimed to write the song, 1956. The Richard Todd Orchestra, under the management of one Johnny Marcus, was set to record the song in early 1959, but Hood, who would pass on in March of that year, for some reason never signed the papers to finalize the deal. His obituary, his family, the folks who remember, and plenty of YouTube covers of the song recognize him as its true author. Personally, I think that's where the evidence leads. So, who wrote You Are My Sunshine? Maybe we'll never really know. Maybe it was Paul Rice, Doug Spivey, Marvin Taylor, or Oliver Hood. Maybe it was some combination of cultural factors that led to the spontaneous creation of its different parts. Personally, I think it was Oliver Hood. But we know it was not Jimmie Davis. Fuck that guy. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, I am Brian Jenkins. This is my channel. If you like it, then please subscribe, for more videos like this. Coming up in the future, we have why IQ tests are so dumb. Who the heck was Horace Grant? What's the deal with this island right here? Why is this map not right? For things like that, please do come on back and leave a like. Have a good day. See you again.